Adapting something is hard, no matter which way you look at it. Movie to book, book to game, game to comic, comic to movie. The one medium that seems to have the biggest trouble adapting is video games. How the hell do you take a passive experience and make it an active one, while also making a good game? Even worse off than adapting 2 games is adapting a game. Excluding books or comics. I'm not talking about those right now. I don't even know why I bothered writing that intro, because Sonic the goddamn Hedgehog has the best video game movie ever, and I think that says enough about the state of the genre. It's the best movie I saw in theaters last year. It might have been the only one. With all of the games that have been adapted, how is it that the series that got the best movie is this one?
I found you, Faker.
Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here.
Let's dive into the world of video game adaptations to see why I think they're failing and how they can succeed.
Wait.
Jade! You think this is a joke, you little brat?
Now hand over that chow nice and easy.
I bet you're the ones who took chocolate chow.
What?
Looking at Wikipedia's list for video game movies, you can see a very interesting trend. Most games weren't picked because of the quality of the story, but the popularity of the series. The first live-action theatrical Hollywood-made video game adaptation, that's a mouthful, is Super Mario Bros., released on May 28th, 1993. Mario is a very malleable franchise. Look what Nintendo has done with him as proof. You can do just about anything with the guy and it will make sense. This? Don't do this. This is how you fail. All of this is wrong. Mario is huge. It makes sense that this is the first series to make it to the big screen. But here's the thing. In '93, Mario games didn't really explore writing. The first game to characterize the Mario class, which has largely stuck to this day, is not gonna lie, just taking in how much that game has done for the entire series. Getting back on track, Mario RPG was still 3 years out by the time this movie released, and the series as a whole wasn't as malleable as it is now. It's the main reason why that movie is so bizarre. There wasn't enough to go off of back then, and it's very easy to fly off the tracks in those situations. If I had to pick a Nintendo series to make a movie out of in the 90s, it's kinda hard. Metroid. It is so inspired by Alien, they literally named a character after its director. This trend sadly continues to this day. Fighting games were huge in the 90s, so naturally we got a lot of those adapted. People like the first Mortal Kombat. The series, and most fighting games, tend to have a lot of lore. Theoretically, there could be something there. It was too early for an MK movie. It's good 90s cheese, but a tournament arc doesn't translate the best to movies. Maybe in 2021, post Mortal Kombat 9, where we've been getting pretty good story modes in these games, we can get a good movie. Never mind. Another interesting trend is horror games being adapted. There's a surprising amount. Is it because they have interesting stories to tell that would work in a film? Nope. Horror movies are very cheap to make, and basing one off of an existing IP is a great way to suck in a few more people. And there's nothing worse on this planet than a cheap cash grab horror film, which all of these are. Outside of the sea of fighting games, horror games, and Resident Evil fanfictions disguised as big blockbuster Hollywood movies, there are a small handful of movies based off of games that have legitimately good stories. The first video game adaptation I would say is based off of a game with a good story is Max Payne. The very not good Max Payne movie starring bad casting department. On paper, Max Payne definitely had the biggest chance out of every other video game movie at this point, solely based off of what the source material had to offer. And it's one of the worst in the genre. Great. Since then, we've gotten all of these, which are indeed movies that exist. Look at the only 2 good ones, Sonic and Detective Pikachu. They aren't really based off of franchises well regarded for their stories, but they're the most malleable on this list, as Mario was still pretty vanilla when his movie was made. They worked. 26 years after the first video game adaptation, and we finally got something that passed the pretty good threshold. That's what you have to do if you're going to pick a game that doesn't have a strong story to adapt. The franchise has to be able to fit into anything. Going by Rotten Tomatoes, the first video game movie to get a pass is Tomb Raider 2018, which makes sense. The series has always been popular, and unlike the original, now there's a half-decent story to adapt. Looking to the future of the genre, excluding sequels, there are 4 video game movies being made that I believe could work. Metal Gear Solid, Yakuza, Ghosts of Place I Can't Pronounce, and Five Nights at Freddy's. Fuck you. I would put the Uncharted movie in that list, but it is clearly going through development hell. Real talk though, if given to the right people, I feel like a FNAF movie could be fun and spooky. Nothing groundbreaking or amazing, but a little fun, you know? That's truly the key. The right people need to be making these movies, and they haven't been for the overwhelming majority of them.
See, if you can get in close enough, you can see the determined look on Uwe Boll's face. He is not joking around, ladies and gentlemen.
How are we going to talk about video game adaptations without talking about the man who shat most of them out, Uwe Boll? Mostly known for his absolutely based Letterboxd reviews, Mr. Boll has made way too many of these movies. Possibly as a money laundering scheme. Allegedly. The damage this man has done to the genre is massive. He's the main reason why they're seen as box office poison and low quality garbage, because that's what he made. Look at comic book movies. They were able to reach the heights of today because over the years, big name talent made massive landmark movies, despite the fact they used to be seen as video game movies are seen now. Burton led to Raimi led to Favreau and Nolan. It's hard to convince talent to come when the face of the genre was this man for so long. There have been big actors in these movies, but that's for marketing reasons, not because they fit the role or their passion for the project. An actor can't salvage a bad script or a bad director. The movies have been bad and made no money, so huge Hollywood talent is not coming. Rip a Metroid movie by Ridley Scott. It's a self-fulfilling cycle of garbage. But there is a cheat that comic book movies use. People who grew up playing video games are now finding themselves in these big Hollywood positions. That's what I think really helped Sonic and Detective Pikachu. Those two getting good movies is a fantastic stepping stone for a huge director to come in. Talent is the key to making these movies good. More so than the series having a good story. And it's exciting that we got 2 good movies that made a lot of money. If I had to place where video game movies are on the comic book movie timeline, I would say we're probably around Tim Burton's Batman. I'm not saying we have to wait like another 20 years or whatever until we get another good one. I'm just saying that based off of the quality of the movies, that's roughly where we are. Now we play the waiting game to see what will be the Raimi Spider-Man. FNAF, baby. Kidding. It's hard to guess. Outside of Borderlands, we don't really have the clearest picture of who's working on it, and that movie's casting is 50-50, so I'm not sure how this is going to go. In the end, I just don't think movies are the best place for video game adaptations. I've played games that are as short as 5 hours and as long as 150 hours. They're just straight up too long. For some games, you can just look up all the cutscenes and it will come to around 2.5 hours. But any set piece in it is normally done through gameplay and also dialogue that's not done in cutscenes. For an action game, you're going to have to chop up that 2.5 hours of cutscene just so you can have some set pieces in it. And even then, that doesn't cover everything that is outside of cutscenes. Even if we had the best director, the perfect script, an amazing cast, a second unit gaffer who is absolutely killing it with the electrical tape, no one's tripping on any wires on set, there will be too much of the game cut out. Or in the case of Final Fantasy 15, the movie was the story cut out of the game. Fans will likely leave the theater a little dissatisfied because their favorite side characters or some really fun segments were cut, because you can't have those in the smaller setting that is film. Or you make it a multi-part series for a single game. But that is such a big gamble. I don't see many studios doing that. Let's take one of the most beloved stories in video games. The Last of Us. How Long to Beat has that game pegged around 15 hours. Let's say you make a 2.5 hour movie based off of it. You're still making something that's 6 times shorter than the source material. It's not like that 12.5 hours that's being cut out is exclusively gameplay where you're pushing skids over water and there's no dialogue or character development. And that's not even factoring in Left Behind. That game will be too cut up. It won't work as well as it could as a movie. Which is why it's getting a TV show. Outside of the 2 good video game movies, all good adaptations, at least adaptations accepted by their fan bases, aren't movies. Even with these 2 franchises, they've been seeing success on TV for decades. Many fan bases have gotten adaptations that range from pretty lacking but are still okay to great, to name a few. Persona 4, Pokemon, the many Sonic shows, The World Ends With You, Kirby, and Halo. Most are Japanese anime. There's more time for an adaptation to breathe and fully flesh out its story on TV, which is why I think shows are so much more accepted by their fan bases. You get to see more of what you love. I'm not saying all video game adaptations are good. Some are bad, but we're starting to reach a point in the genre where the good are starting to outweigh the bad. That's not how scales work. The bad shows are way better than bad video game movies. There's a lot of stinkers out there from the 90s and early 2000s. And you can say the exact same thing about comic book movies when Iron Man and The Dark Knight changed everything. Because we've gotten quality stuff, the right talent is coming in and is making great adaptations. Even if the game's story couldn't carry a show, at the end of the day, the talent coming in working on these shows is way more important than the quality of the source material's story. It took until 2007 for amazing filmmakers to come in and start making comic book movies consistently. We may not be at that point for video game movies yet, but shows have been attracting the talent. Let's look at The Last of Us again. Great casting choices so far, but more importantly, they got the showrunner of Chernobyl at the helm. I haven't finished it yet, but HBO's Chernobyl is such a good show, I highly recommend it. There's no way that they watched Pokemon and P4A and that convinced them to work on a video game show. I've left out some key shows from this video. The genres Iron Man and Dark Knight, in fact. It's funny that the company who's known for f***ing up every single live-action anime is leading the charge here. In 2017, 2 absolute mad lads somehow convinced Konami and Netflix to make an adaptation of Castlevania 3, a game that has an instruction booklet of story and a GBA game that takes place right after it in the timeline, I guess. The company's having seemingly little faith in the idea, but were intrigued by it, gave them a chance. 1 season, 4 episodes. Very small commitment. It isn't just okay because it's not bad. It's good. Like, really good. First time up to bat and Netflix hit a dinger. When the shows got renewed, its seasons got extended. Netflix clearly had faith after this first season. Castlevania is a goddamn masterclass of taking the premise of a game and perfectly adapting it to a show. A show based off of an NES game shouldn't work, let alone a North American-made Netflix anime. Yet, at the time of its release, it was by far the best video game adaptation ever. It recently finished its last season featuring Trevor Belmont and co., but that doesn't necessarily mean that the show is done. There's still many more Belmonts to cover. I'll be surprised if we don't see this show again. More importantly, the creators are moving on to a Devil May Cry show. I'm getting ahead of myself. After Castlevania, Netflix cemented their place as the leaders of video game adaptations with 2019's The Witcher. I know the games are continuations of books that came out before them, and Season 1 follows the first Geralt and Ciri books, not any of the games. I don't care. Let's be real. The show is only getting made because of the games, and it's capitalizing off of the success of The Witcher. It's basically a video game adaptation, and you cannot convince me otherwise. It's also doubling as Netflix's shot to fill the hole that Game of Thrones left. It seems they've done a very good job filling it. It shows how much faith Netflix has in the genre, that they went for a highly popular video game franchise based off of some books that no one read to fight for that spot. Expect many more seasons of it. From what I've heard, The Witcher show is really good, that and Castlevania stand as Netflix's pillars of the genre.
So I just finished editing for the night and I decided to check Twitter, and I see this right on the top of my timeline. Dude, this is what I've been saying. Someone hire me to make a video game show.
They also released a Dota show recently. Much like fighting games, Dota doesn't have the most concrete story, but it has a lot of lore to go off of. From what I've heard, it's the weakest of the bunch, but it's still good. Netflix may be losing one show from its lineup now, but they got many more on the way. Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk, Splinter Cell, Tomb Raider, Sonic, The Division, Final Fantasy XIV, Devil May Cry, Cuphead, League of Legends, and Beyond Good and Evil. Beyond Good and Evil show is 100% coming out before 2A. That game is so fun. Looking at that list, the two that stick out to me the most are Assassin's Creed and Resident Evil. Both of those have had film franchises that have disappointed their fan bases. It's going to be really interesting to see what kind of talent those shows can attract. If both of those shows are good, or at the very least better than the movies, it proves my point, just saying. As for shows I'm excited to see, Devil May Cry, exclusively because of the absolute G they have heading it. Splinter Cell, because I can't trust Ubisoft to put Sam Fisher in a new game, and let's be real, I'll probably enjoy this show more than a game anyways. Cuphead, because I love old Disney shorts, and this show will probably be the only show to give us that art style for the rest of time. Final Fantasy, because it takes so long to play through an expansion in FF14, and it will take way less time to watch up to Shadowbringers than it would to play up to it. Cyberpunk, because we need more things in the cyberpunk genre. What I said about The Witcher 3 stands here, by the way. Even just thinking about video games I want to see adaptations of, to my left, I'll put video games I want to see movies made out of, and to my right, I will put video games I want to see shows made out of. After I finished the first draft for this script, a Final Fantasy IX animated show was announced. I am very excited for that. Hollywood, stop it. Video game movies aren't working out. Shut it down. Except force Ridley Scott to make a Metroid movie, goddammit. Stick to TV. The talent is more drawn to these properties there. The format works better for adapting a video game. We have a way better lineup, and I forgot what my fourth thing was. As Castlevania proved, it doesn't really matter what series are adapted. Do you agree? Think I'm an idiot? Comment down below. Dislike. Was that me speaking? Tenet was the other movie I saw in theaters last year. Oh, dude, right. What I said about the Sonic movie being the best movie I saw in theaters still counts. Dislike the video if you think I'm actually the dumbest person on the planet for enjoying the Sonic movie more than Tenet, and subscribe for more bad content. Follow me on other platforms if you want. Take care, guys.
I will find us a covered wagon and horses if you two can manage not to kill each other while I'm gone.
Oh, please. We're not children. He shouldn't die. Yes, fuck you.